If you're in this thing for the long game, culture is everything. Culture is our only competitive advantage in the marketplaplace.
We care more about the client than how much money we're making. We make decisions from our heart versus our pocketbook. That's culture.
Does everybody buy in?
They either step out, they leave, or they do buy in.
It really starts with who are you bringing in the door? Do you have a hiring process that looks for the people that align with your culture?
And you will get people who will come in and like you said earlier, I don't need a communication training. I know how to talk to people. You don't know how to talk to people like we talk to our people.
Hello, I'd like to welcome you all to the Wisdom of Wrench podcast. My name is Kevin Comerford, and we are right smack in the middle of a 3-part series, which is titled The Top 3 Mindsets Needed to Build an Elite Training Organization. We just finished part 1 of the series, which was be a people development company. In part 2, we're going to talk about something I love that's very near and dear to my heart, which is protecting your culture. The second mindset that's required to build an elite training organization is the fact that when you do it, you are, and the reason you're doing it is to protect your culture. I'm joined today by my co-host, Ray Diaz, who is stepping in for Amanda Meyer today. Thank you, Ray, for your help.
Glad to be here.
Happy you're here. Also, Mike O'Brien is with us in part 2 of the series. You learned a lot about Mike O'Brien in part 1. So if you've yet to watch part 1, I would strongly encourage you to go back and watch about Mike and his background and our background together. So much great information shared on part 1 of this very, very powerful series. Again, we're gonna talk about today in part 2, and we're gonna jump right into it. By the way, how you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great, Kevin.
Good. I almost jumped right into it without just making sure that I checked in with you.
That's right. That's what it's all about, jumping into the learning and getting things going.
Yes. Okay, so we are going to jump right into it. Protect your culture. Okay, so me, as the leader of the organization, as the executive leaders of the organization, must have the mindset that culture is critically important. Culture is it. Culture is the major, the number one distinguishing factor. It's our only competitive advantage. Okay, that's kind of the underlying message I want to send, which is that culture is our only competitive advantage in the marketplace. So if you're contemplating and deciding if you want to go all in on a training organization and become a training organization, this is pretty important. To want to protect this competitive advantage, which is our culture, is the mindset that you need. So what the heck is culture? Really? What is it? It's this, squishy little thing, and people talk about culture, and you've got to have great culture, and, I'm all about driving revenue and results. I don't have time for this culture thing. Whoa. If you're in this thing for the long game, culture is everything. Now, if you're in it for the short game, okay, you can probably get away with driving revenue and pushing results, and that being the main reason that you're running and existing in your business. But let me tell you, culture is everything. So what is culture? I just want to go back and define culture as we see it. And then, Mike, what I'd love to do is I'd love you to give a couple of examples of what it looks like in real life.
Sure.
Okay. So I'll define it. What is culture? Culture are the attitudes and behaviors of the team members inside an organization towards the client and towards each other.
Beautiful.
Yes.
I would also say it's the glue and fabric that holds a company together. It's the in-betweens that makes people want to come to work every day. That's not revenue driven, but it's driven from the heart.
It's not money. It's not the hourly wage. Driven from the heart. Share a little bit more on that.
So I look at coming from the educational world into the trade world, a different lens and perspective I brought to it. And culture is so key in schooling and working with educators and children and parents. And, you have to have a unique culture in order for people to thrive. And so culture was on my mind when I came on board. And what I saw immediately was the interactions between anyone from any division being friendly, supportive. There was humor. There wasn't griping and negativity. There was the core values that people referred to all the time. They're posted everywhere. Everyone knew our mission statement. Everyone knew that clients come first after teammates develop themselves and work together and support each other. There was a family feeling. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I thought, oh, this is nice. I'm on the honeymoon.
Yeah.
Everyone's super friendly. How you doing? And weeks went by and nothing changed other than harmonious, outgoing, supportive people that wanted to be here and do a good job for each other, for the company. And I said, this is a great place to work because this is ingrained. It's established. Then the question for me was, how do they teach this with new people? I'm experiencing it as a new person, but no one sat me down at that moment to say, this is what we do. This is who we are. This is what has to happen because this is part of our culture. But then we had Culture Day and it made a lot of sense. So I think for us, we know our culture very, very, very clearly. But I would ask other companies out there that are thinking of starting an institution of learning that ask themselves the question, what is your culture? What is it that you're going to defend? What is that makes you unique? What is it that brings your employees to work every day with a smile? What is it that you have to define that makes your company tick, that is part of something maybe intangible, that magic, that special drink that everybody drinks in and goes with the flow with the company? What is that? Because you can't protect something you're not aware of. And until it's defined, you don't know what that is. And for us being service champions, it's very clearly defined what our culture is.
And Mike, you bring up a great point, because when we first started the business, there was 5 to 7 of us. Ray was one of those 5 to 7. We were sitting around a table, and it was really easy to talk about, okay, here's what we're going to do today. Here's our mission. Here's our direction. Here's our structure. Here's what our intention is today. Let's go out and make it happen. And we'd get back together the next day, and we would talk about it. And so it was really easy to, I'll call it, be on the same page, be aligned. It was really easy. Then what happens is your company grows, which can be both a blessing. It also can be a curse. Because if your organization is growing without the documented culture and the documented training that's required to continuously remind everybody, to continuously go over it with everybody, it's going to wane.
Or disappear.
Or disappear. Or disappear.
And I think you brought up a interesting question, because when we think of learning or training, we think of in the trades that it's the hands-on, it's the understand the equipment, understand the processes. Training has to do with teaching whatever it is that you want your organization to absorb. And teaching culture is part of a curriculum, is part of a course. And it's something that's not a one and done. We have to get out of the previous mindset of once we taught them, they know it, let's move forward. Well, what about the dozen people that were hired 3 weeks later? Are they going to get that same training? Mm-hmm. No, people don't remember who was at some certain trainings, even though we got the whole company done, right? So we can't do a one and done. It's a one and revisit. You keep revisiting. So with culture, it should be embedded in every meeting, every get together, every training that occurs. You have to have culture be sprinkled in. So it's continuously being learned, relearned, reflected on, and evaluated all the time as to why we have culture in the first place and what drives us to have this culture.
Ray, I know you've got a few things on your mind. I know you've got a few things on your mind.
I love this conversation. Your culture. Yeah, you started talking about, you can teach it. You can create core values. You can create whatever you want in words on a whiteboard or on a poster somewhere. But for me, culture is something that's lived. It's people seeing it, and you observed it. You felt it when you first came on board or when you were interviewing. You wonder if it's going to be sustained or not, and then all of a sudden you realize it's all around you. It's everywhere you go, and that same feeling you got in the beginning is still there. And I think it's really something all of us have to live. We have to live. You have to live culture. Culture, core values, all that stuff is something you actually are. You're living it every day. And as long as you and your team are living it every day, then it will continue to grow, because it's like leading by example. Everybody's actually living in that way. And examples, I think about, when you talk about examples, Kevin, in our company, and I think it's how we treat a client. So how do we treat a client? We care more about the client than how much money we're making today. We make decisions from our heart versus our pocketbook. That's culture. That's living a way that is more. It's about my client than it is about me. It's you talk about our salespeople. How in a lot of other industries, salespeople don't want to share their secrets or share their talent. No, what do our salespeople do for years? They're in the room together. They're sharing their success. They're sharing and helping other salespeople become better people. Not worried too much about what they're making, how much money they're making, but they're sharing how they're making that money, and that doesn't live in a lot of other cultures. We always talk about an old friend of mine, Scott Vick. He was a young senior technician who was around me when I was growing up in the business as well, and then I went off and I created some records of my own, but he always wanted to break my records. Well, great. I want to help him break my records. I want to help him do better than me. I want to help my family, my kids do better than me. That's a culture, to have a feeling that you're always wanting other people around you to do better. I tell the young technicians, I'm going to frustrate you when I'm training them. They ask me why I'm going to frustrate, because I want more from you than you want from yourself. I'm going to help you get there. I want more for you than ever wanted for me. And I think we have a lot of that in our company. And I think that you have to live it. That's just living it. Yeah.
I love that.
A couple of fundamental things, if we're talking about training on culture, that you need as your company grows, is documented culture. Couple fundamental basic things that you'll see in any successful organization. And I'll just specifically talk about our organization. You will see a list of core values. You will see a book that's written about those core values that tells stories about each one of the core values. So people can, just like the Bible is all about stories, so too is a book that we wrote about each of our core values to tell specific stories so people understand, oh, okay, this is how this lives and really unfolds in real life. We have a core philosophy, which is learn how, do it now, create wow, that we teach on all the time, that we come back to, that when we say those words, learn how, we're a learning organization, do it now, act with urgency, create wow, blow the client and blow your existing team members away by your follow through, by your actions. We train on that. We teach on that. And then the third thing is a very special component of our culture, documented culture, which is a common service language. And we've been talking about common service language inside of Wrench. Things like be more interested than interesting. Another one would be the smaller they think we are, the larger we will get. So these are all statements that we make, language that we use, a common language that we use inside the organization, so that when we share it with each other, whether it's in passing or if we're in a training class together, learning it or relearning it or just being reminded of it, it's what grounds us and brings us back to this culture.
It's like a family. Your parents emulate how to be nurturing and how to have good work ethic and chores and learn by your mistakes. And you live in the culture of your family. And just like a family, the company you work with has the leaders, the parents, your siblings that you have friendly competition with as you earn sales or whatever. You live in and breathe it. But you have to document it, you have to live it, and you have to say it. And when I mean say it, for example, what comes to mind is if it's meant to be, it's up to me. When I teach a training course, I ask that right off the bat, what does that mean? They reply back, well, if you don't do something, then it's your own fault. I said, yeah, so it's up to you, right? To be better, to do better. And then you find people start saying it. Oh, I need to study a little bit more. So if it's meant to be, it's up to me. I'm like, you got it. Or vow to do it now. Not only does it trickle in their life within the company, countless times I've had cadets and other people say, hey, I said that to my son the other day. Vow to do it now. So he took the trash out. I'm implementing the culture of our company into my own family because the values we have are easily expressed or easily able to convert over to life versus work life. Mm-hmm. And that's a beautiful, strong, and wonderful type culture and process. So if everyone's living it, they're sharing it all the time. And you know that's your culture's working because it's all positive. Something that we've done, and we've slipped up on this at times. We're back implementing this in the business is a quarterly culture day for all new team members. You want to talk about that for a minute? What is culture day? I was lucky enough to have a culture day that was run by you and by Ray Diaz and Cookie Silva, who oversaw our whole call center, an amazing woman, and had that experience of what Service Champions means to you, what it means to all of us. And you went through all of our luxury language, you went through the core values, but you aligned it with how the company started and how it grew, and with stories and examples. Everyone in the room got a feeling of, wow, this is cool. This is great. This is family feeling of encouragement and growth. And I can't argue with these values. They're life values. I appreciate them. And in turn, we felt appreciated. And that culture was spread through that whole experience it was a one-day type process. Mm-hmm. And then we went through a really good growth spurt. Things got a little away from us. And we said, we need to bring this back because we're bringing in so many new teammates and we can never assume, you know what assume means, right? Mm-hmm. You can't assume that they're just going to, through osmosis, just get it.
So you bring up a great point there. So if anybody that's listening to us is kind of feeling like, gosh, we're kind of getting away from our culture and things just aren't the way they used to be. That's how we were feeling.
It's exactly how we were feeling.
And that's why we said, okay, we got to get back to the very basics.
We got to vow to do it now.
Yes.
So we did. We put together a culture day, and we re-looked at how we wanted everything to be presented. We gathered up what makes our culture, and we did it through some videos. We've done it through adult learning style procedures. We're bringing all these people in from different areas of our company, and they're doing team trainings and team games, and they're having great discussions and interviewing each other, and we're aligning and establishing all of our core values and how we live into and ingrained into the lessons of the culture day. And it's upbeat and it's lively, and there's games and competition about the history of the company and all the sayings we do and the core values and how it aligns with their lives. And as they experience it, they realize this is what I see. Because we asked them point blank, and we will say this the very first day. I say, for those of you who've been here for a while already, weeks, months, we do kind of a survey. Those who have been here for a week because you just got hired, I'm going to give you permission to have a bullshit meter. Can I say that?
Yes, you can.
I did. And when I'm teaching and talking about our culture, and I'm saying we do these things, and you should be seeing this, and this is how we all operate and work and make decisions based on our core values. If you haven't seen that and you think I'm just blowing smoke, just give me the horns and be like, bullshit. I don't see that. And call me out, because that's part of our culture.
Yes.
Honesty, clarity, clear communication, and friendly discussion about where things going. So do it. And so nobody's called. I think Dan Mickey did it for fun, but nobody does that, because what we're saying is true. It's not rose tinted glasses. It's not candy coated. It's real. And at the end, what I love is our exit tickets, where we get feedback on how everything went. And people are sharing such amazing phrases like, this really reinvigorated why I'm here. I'm so glad you are doing this. I love this company. These are the things I bring home to my family. This is why I live this way. It's a great feeling. It's a great part of our culture. So companies that if they haven't had a culture day of who they are, I would challenge you to start thinking about doing that, because everybody needs a good shot in the arm of why you're at this company and why you're doing what you're doing. And a culture day would bring everybody together and remind them why they're there.
Great. One thing I learned that I've shared many times with the leadership team, and I learned this from a group I've been a part of since 1996 called Strategic Coach, that as your organization grows, you need two things to keep it together. You need consistency and you need innovation. You have to have both. Because if you're constantly looking just to innovate, which is to take an existing process and enhance it, make it better. So if maybe you're in the plumbing business and you want to get in the electrical business, or if you want to innovate and you're in the electrical business, you want to bring on generators, you constantly have to innovate. You constantly have to raise the bar. You also need this thing called consistency, which, by the way, happens to be the third part of this series. So we're going to spend a lot of time on this in just a minute. But the consistency and the consistency really goes back to, what is it that you did that made your company special from the get-go? The core values, the culture, the culture. So going back to those items is so important, especially as your company continues to grow. One thing about Culture Day, one of the first things we share on Culture Day is this question: team, who is responsible for culture in this organizations? in this organization. Who's responsible for it? And what's our answer, Mike?
We are.
Me. Yep.
Me.
We each are. Is what I heard both Ray and you say me. So every single person. In last class, we had, I think, 45 people that went through Culture Day. We're telling them right off the bat that there is no entitlement here. Like, you are responsible for the culture of Service Champions. You are responsible for the culture of Wrench. You have to make it great. You have to make it, you have to lift it up, you have to uphold it. And so right out of the gate, they're getting this indoctrination that, okay, if it's meant to be,
it's up to me.
Yes.
So that brings us back, for me, Kevin, when you're saying that, a note I made was, this brings us all back to courage, to our first podcast about courage. And everybody's responsibility to keep our culture alive. And our culture could be making sure our shirts are tucked in, hats aren't being worn in a house or in a building, and the courage of a teammate, not necessarily a manager, but a teammate, to be able to go and coach their teammate on a culture item. And again, it could be something so simple as a tucking of a shirt or a hat. And there's a book, Good to Great, that I always refer back to, and it says companies become great when it's not the manager who is out there correcting culture issues or whatever, or supporting. It's when the teammates themselves are all out there living it, reminding each other about it. And I think that's what part of culture is. It's how you're building it within the team itself. So a real quick question for you, Mike. I know you talked about how Ray and Kevin and Cookie used to do Culture Day. You've brought a little bit more to Culture Day than just us presenting and teaching or whatever up in front of people. You've brought some added, from what I understand, what I hear from people who've been through your Culture Day. There's some added things that you put in there, and it's probably adult learning stuff again. Can you share some of that?
Yeah, well, yes. So what I've done is the 90-10. I've turned the teaching around back onto my teammates, and I've asked them to align a lot of things that we have in our culture to their own lives, and they start seeing and sharing what the culture is, even though they maybe haven't been sat down to define it. So I challenge them. But we also do a lot of team building. So we've done almost like speed dating, but it's speed interviewing, where they run around and they have to answer the questions I give them that are fun. So they're meeting everybody in the room. So people from call agents are meeting installers, and service techs are talking to new salespeople, and they're getting a feeling for who all these people are, and it's fun and it's lighthearted. And we talk about aligning that to our core values of giving remarkable service to your teammates and getting to know them. We also have a rock, paper, scissors competition, a throwdown, where teammates are backing each other up as you lose rock, paper, scissors, your opponent becomes your cheerleader and gets behind you, and you challenge someone else. And pretty soon, by the end of the event, you have two people going head to head with half the room on one side, half the room on the other side, supporting and yelling and screaming for them to win. And it's all for fun, but it's part of who we are. We're encouraging, we're supportive. It's these little tweaks that are getting everyone involved off their feet. They're not being lectured to, right? They're part of the process. And in that sense, they're living what our culture is. And that is, we're a people development company where we support each other to do our personal best, and we always strive to give remarkable service. And so it's always tied in. Mm-hmm. And that makes it so much more fun. And it just has people excited and glad to be here.
So the question is, does everybody buy in?
No.
Is it just, oh gosh, I want to come to work there, and I would say no. I would say that if you really want to go all in on training, and you all really want to go all in on protecting your culture through your training, it really starts with who are you bringing in the door? Who are you hiring? And do you have a hiring process in place that looks for the people that align with your culture? That looks for people that can answer some questions around your core values, around your core philosophy. So if one of your core values, for example, is be a lifelong student, one of the questions that you want to ask during the interview process is, what books or what podcasts are you listening to right now?
Mm-hmm.
And tell me what you're learning from it. And more importantly, tell me what you're implementing in your life from those. Because then, do I have a lifelong student here? Or if one of your core values is honor your commitments, tell me a time where you failed to honor your commitment. And what did you do about it? Or tell me a time when you honored your commitment and what came of it? Something like that. So having specific interview questions that align with your core values and looking for particular individuals that align with a philosophy that we have, a hiring philosophy that we got from a book called The Ideal Team Player. Either one of you want to talk about that?
I was going to say, Ideal Team Player is part of our library. It's something we teach on. We've had book clubs regarding it. Revisit it. Even if we've read it before, we revisit it again, because learning is not one and done, right? A constant revisit. But you're right. We hire people who are hungry, humble, smart. We want people who are willing to be humble. They don't know everything. They're willing to learn and get the support needed to be better, to learn more. Smart. They make great decisions and they learn from their mistakes, and they want to pursue a career in the trades or call center, wherever it is they are, and they're determined and hungry. They want to do their personal best. They want to strive to be better. And so you take those attributes and you redo the interview questions so that you get those responses without saying, are you hungry? Are you humble? Are you smart?
Right.
You do it in a way that you will get a conversation to happen. So they let down their guard and you're seeing the true person that you want to have an interaction with. We're hiring for a great attitude, right? And we can always teach the technical skills later. They have to be a cultural fit, as we say, right?
Something that Mike just said that we stole from Southwest. Hire for attitude, train for skill. Find a great individual. And by the way, that book, Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni, in that book, it gives you great interview questions in the book specifically to look for people that are humble, hungry, and smart. People that are lifelong students, humble, like Mike was saying. I don't need to go through that again, but it gets very specific, and it's a great takeaway for anybody that wants to institute a new philosophy in your company that aligns with your culture. I would strongly suggest it. Ray, it sounds like you want to say something.
I know you hit it. You hit it all. Mike really covered it well. I just want to make sure we go back to SMART again. Sometimes SMART can be misunderstood. That some kind they're book smart or they're educated or something, and it's really about people. It's about people skills. It's about being able to communicate, and a lot that we focus on. And that goes right back to attitude. That's part of attitude. Can I communicate with people and have a great conversation with them? Are they willing to do that? I think you hit that pretty well. Something earlier too that came to mind was about this whole thing about how about culture and you teach it, but how many people buy in? You talked about that, Kevin, a minute ago, and I'm kind of backing up a little bit because I made a note about it. But do people buy in? And not everybody buys in, not at first anyway. And some people never will, and they usually don't stick around. They move on. Some people buy in right away. Some people, it takes time. And it always reminded me of something you said to me years ago. It's now part of our common service language is you have to just continue. You have to continue the learning, continue the teaching, and eventually you would always say to me, because I'd get frustrated when I was training and teaching and all that, is when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And eventually, and the same thing, eventually people see culture enough, they feel it enough. Again, they either step out, they leave, or they do buy in. They do, but it takes some people a little longer. It's not going to happen right away just because they didn't buy in right now. Maybe 6 months, a year later, they really do understand it. They do become part of it. You just have to give them the time to absorb it and realize it is real, because maybe a past experience in their life turn them off on culture. They went through something before, and they're relearning life. They're relearning something, and just give them time, and people eventually do absorb it. Yeah.
Well, it goes back to, we said, defining your culture and then teaching culture, right? If we didn't, or if a company does not teach it, again, to new people, it'll get lost. New people will bring in old habits from other jobs or other, and start to, kind of like a virus, it'll start to spread possibly, right? So by teaching and revisiting your culture and how you operate and the expectations that we all agree to, and all the time, it just reminds people constantly of what the culture is. So you can't do the one and done. You have to always do that. And you will get people who will come in and like you said earlier, oh, I don't need a communication training. I know how to talk to people. You don't know how to talk to people like we talk to our people, to our clients. And so I love that challenge, because when I have head nods in a classroom saying, oh yeah, that's cool, and I see 2 or 3 people kind of cross their arms and go, I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. So I challenge them on what they've learned and how it aligns to our culture. What was your communication background? Tell me, what would you say to a client? They say, oh, I'd say to a customer. I go, oh, well, hold up one second. We actually don't refer to our customers as customers. We call them clients, because that's our interaction. And they're like, oh, okay. Eventually, they start adopting and they start seeing it, because we present our culture in a way that it's very clear and there's understanding. And after a while, I always say, your ego's not your amigo, because ego will get in the way. And we have part of our culture is being open, honest, and clear. And we'll have that discussion. Is tell me why you feel you cannot add this to your communication style. What's wrong with it? Let's talk about that. Not in a challenging way, but just an open conversation. Eventually, what will happen is I'll have people say, I did that the other day. I talked to a client and actually it really worked.
Yes.
And I'll say, see, just stay with it. It's a good thing.
Yes. Yeah. Love it.
So I think something there as well is it's okay in the learning process. It's in our culture. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be wrong, because that's everybody's biggest fear. A lot of, especially younger people, they're afraid they have to be right, so they won't share. They won't step out. They won't get out on that skinny branch and want to share something because they're afraid they're going to be wrong. And I always yell at them, "Hey, just be wrong. Just say something. Just go ahead," because that's how we learn anyway. Yep. By being wrong, by falling off the bike, we get on it again and we ride a little longer. And so I think that's huge. And teaching them, as you're teaching them a language. If I go to another country, they have a different language than the country I lived in and worked in this country. Now I'm moving to another country to do the same trade, but it's a different country. I have to learn their language. Well, we've created a language at Service Champions, Common Service Language. So when you come to Service Champions, you would know this is our culture. This is our language we speak in our culture. And Kevin and Cookie did a great job putting that book together, because it's utilized, probably one of the most utilized documents for me out there when speaking to people.
So I want to touch on one additional thing, Mike and Ray, before we wrap up this part 2 of this series. And it's really in reference to what I like to refer to as pucker factor. Pucker factor. It's something I get. And I actually got it the other day when one of our electricians told me, or one of our electrical manager had told me that one of his top performing electricians was just in a 6 or 7 week sales training class. Mm-hmm. we pulled him out of class. We pulled him out of the field for. Oh no, we didn't pull him out of the field. We did it.
I negotiated.
In the mornings.
I negotiated.
You negotiated. Yep. You had a sales training class, and we needed to pull out 2 of our top performing electrical technicians
and one of our top performing plumbers.
Okay, that's when I get pucker factor. I don't know about anybody else, but it's like, oh gosh, can we really afford to take people out of the field to teach them on our culture? I know this was different. This was a sales training class, but even still, can I really afford? I got to get them out there generating revenue. No way. So I had pucker factor when I heard that, in particular, a gentleman by the name of Cameron was in class with you.
Yes.
And I had pucker factor until I then learned that the first day he went out, he sold $45,000 in HVAC equipment.
Correct.
My pucker factor kind of went away. But I feel for managers. I feel for owners out there. Because I've been there. I was just there. That, you get presented this idea of culture training, of sales training. And it's like, wait a second. How am I going to meet payroll? How am I going to meet payroll this week if I've got everybody in training?
It's a great question. So from my point of view, when I came on board, I said, great, I can train. It's going to be amazing. I just need these 30 people for one day. And the response was, what are you, crazy? And I realized, because I'm different world, different mindset, well, why wouldn't I have them for training? This is what I was hired for. And there was that slow understanding. You were asking for something and I was delivering, but then there were ripple effects to, wait a second. We didn't think that this would take this long. Do you really think it takes this long? And as an educator, I would say, if you want me to deliver what we're asking in a way that will be learned and done properly, then yes. And I remember learning very quickly, that's a high ask from my position to a company that's earning revenue, having people in the field. And so there was a very respectful learning process, I think, that happened between what we were doing with the university, and it was little growing pains, I think.
For sure.
And I remember negotiating with all of you at a point where I said, in order for all the managers to know how to train, I need to meet with every manager and for 2 days. I need to do a whole training course on how to be good delivery instructors and how to do lesson plans. And I think I saw everyone's eyes like bug out of their head. Like, what are you smoking, man? And we kept pushing it off. And we noticed things here and there that wouldn't have been a concern had they had been trained. And I remember saying, oh, that wouldn't have happened if they had my class. I remember joking. And finally, what I really respected was you saying, we need this class. And here's a great timing in our seasons and everything that would be the best time to have the class. And we did. We had that master training class. And that changed how everything was delivered within the company. Mm-hmm. And as an educator, we don't have the typical KPIs. We have quantitative and qualitative, results that might not be seen for weeks after our training. happens. And to see that happen and have change suddenly start to happen within the company, I knew we were on the right track, and I knew that you saw the worth of what we were doing, and you took a risk though. And I really appreciated that risk.
Mm-hmm.
And the cool part is Cameron also just sold $71,000 worth of cross trade with electrical insulation and other things the day after. I don't know if you know that.
No.
And
Wow.
the sales class was on cross trade and sales. So I was like, yeah.
Right. Wow.
So
yeah, it's a negotiation for
It
sure.
is.
So if you've got a educator or a leader of your training organization or leader of your university, expect that they need to be a salesperson as well. And there has to be some compromise, even when you have pucker factor, because it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Yeah. Ray, you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, the pucker factor comes in different levels. Because think about pucker factor when we were 10 or 15 employees and you pull somebody out of the field to go train versus having 450. So pucker factor is probably less. I had delayed pucker factor because I went and did training at our electrical location and found out the day they came back that they had both been gone for those 7 weeks. So I felt that a little bit. But, I also always remembered that in order to grow an organization, you have to make investments. Financial investments in equipment, trucks, and everything else. You also have to make these investments in people. And this is a huge investment. We also lived up to a commitment because we had a commitment that if we were going to allow a tradesperson like an electrician to sell another product like HVAC, that they had to go get certified to do it. They didn't get to just go sell it. They had to go through our certification process, which was our full training. So we made the investment. And we lived up to our commitment. And there's always can I afford to do it, but can I afford not to do it? So that's the quandary you're always in the middle of your pucker factor.
So good. Yep. Well, let's wrap up part 2. Clearly a mindset that's needed to build an elite training organization is this one on protecting your culture. And if you allow your culture to just carry a life of its own as your organization grows, you're in trouble. Because just like this new landscape that I might have put into my house, it's beautiful and it's perfect when it's the day it's done, but then weeds start to grow, weeds start to show up. So you constantly need to have maintenance done on it. You constantly need to be reminding your people of the culture and what it stands for, what we stand for, why we exist. That has to constantly, you have to do it in very creative ways, as Mike has told us from the get-go here. So again, it's a constant learning process. It's a constant growing process. And it's one of the things I believe, that you always make your future bigger than your past. So if we had a great culture last week, we're constantly looking at making it better this week and bringing on more people who believe and buy into what we're doing. So as I end every one of these podcasts, here's to a bigger future. Part 2 of this series is over. Thanks very much.